DNA stands for, you want to copy this out carefully. I will not make you regurgitate this word. We will use DNA as our abbreviation for the rest, but it does stand for deoxyribonucleic acid. Okay? In Science 10, you'll learn what an acid is and what makes it an acid. Did you find the notes okay? Were you going to tell me? And it turns out, and this is the part that does make me kind of get that little nerdy shiver down my spine, Riley, the molecule that makes you, the molecule that makes you, the molecule that makes plants, the molecule that makes bugs, all the different species, it turns out it only has 4 submolecules called bases. And the bases are adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. And you know what? We abbreviate them, and I'm not going to make you memorize the names. I am going to make you memorize the abbreviations. Base A, base T, base C, base G. Those 4 molecules determine your hair color, your eye color, your height, determine whether you have curly hair or straight hair, determine whether your earlobes connect or whether your earlobes dangle, determine whether you have a flat nose or a solid nose, all the stuff that makes you, whether you have long toes or short stubby toes. All that stuff is determined by these 4 molecules. So I have a little activity. You're just going to try this very quickly for about 60 seconds or so, Lena. How does DNA store all the info that makes you? With your partner or on your own, try and come up with as many 4 base sequences as you can in 1 minute. In other words, here's one, A, G, T, C, using those 4. How many different ways can you mix those 4 letters up? Take about 30 seconds. I'll give you another one. A, C, T, G. Right? With you have room there. It says creating base pairs activity. You have room. Try and see how many different ways you can mix those 4 letters up. G, A, T, C. That means you need to pick your pencil up. You need to see how many different ways that you can mix those up. It means you have to try this. T, A, G, C. Tagsg. You know what? I should be organized. Why don't I do everything that starts with A? A, G, then I can go A, C, T, G, A, C, G, T. Then I can go A, G, T, C I've done. Oh, you know what? I already got A, C, T, G up there. A, G, C, T. Can you mix them up? Yeah. I'm just going to hit pause now because I'm not going to test you on this. And then each of these, because they kind of come in clumps of 4, each of these get clumped together as well to build these long, random, jumbled chains. How many? Well, if you had more time, could you make more sequences? I wrote here. Yep. What if you made 16 base sequences instead of just making them in groups of 4? What if you tried pairing 16 so you could have 16 A's, 15 A's and 1 G, 15 A's and 1 T, 14 A's and a G and a T? How many different ways can you mix it up? Well, it turns out the human genome contains over 3 billion base pairs. The total number of sequences is around 4 to the 3 billionth power. I couldn't find a calculator even online that would calculate that number. It's big. That's why all human beings are different. Is it theoretically possible for 2 human beings to be identical? Now with twins, because they have identical genetics, they're genetically identical, yes, but is it possible for 2 human beings from 2 different parents to be genetically identical? It ain't likely. it would be a big fluke. What's the DNA structure? It turns out the bases always pair up like the two sides of a ladder. A and T always pair up. C and G always pair up. You have some room kind of up and to the right. There's a little blank space right there. What I'd like you to do in that little blank space, I have room here, is draw a little line here and a line here, two sides of a ladder with some room in between them. Okay? Oh, strands of DNA can be, you can fill in this, millions of base pairs long. The order of the base pairs is what contains the information. So here is a representation, Jordan, of a DNA molecule. Jordan, pick a letter, A, G, T, or C. I don't care. Pick one. So in our little ladder, draw a little chunk, put a C there. Okay? What it would pair up with on the other side of the ladder is a G. C always goes with G. Pick another letter from that A, G, A. So if we have an A here, what does A always pair up with on the other side of the DNA molecule? What did I say in the notes right about T? They would connect. Okay? Pick another letter. T. What would be over here? A. You want another T? That can happen. You'd have another A. C and G always pair together. A and T always pair together. And there's an easy way to remember which ones go with which. Look up. What letter? C. What letter? C and G go together because they almost fit on top of each other. We've been doing that for, well, about 50 years, ever since we learned how DNA worked. Oh, and then A and T go together. So you have to use a process of elimination. If C and G go together, A and T go together. Although DNA doesn't look like a standard ladder, it's a standard ladder if you then also twisted the ladder to make it spiral as it went around. This is what a DNA molecule looks like, which is really tough to draw on a two-dimensional piece of paper, but I'll show you. We'll do a coloring assignment and things a bit later. The DNA molecule is what we call a double helix. It's a ladder and a spiral at the same time, and the fancy word for that is it's a double helix. Let me pause for a second. Okay, so absolutely a good question, Kiana, on your test might be, I could give you half of a side of DNA and say, hey, can you fill in the rest of the pairs? Okay. A goes with T, T goes with A. C and G go together because they look alike. That's how I remember. This is really what it looks like, and I didn't include this in your notes because I couldn't get it. Here's a model. So can you see it's the ladder that I just drew, but spinning, spiraling? If you really want to see it on the molecular level, this is what was discovered in the 1950s. I think it was two scientists named Watson and Crick were able to visualize what this looked like, and they won a Nobel Prize in biology for it. You can see in my little diagram here, the green is A, adenine. What does it pair up with? What color? Blue. Oh, T. And the yellow is guanine in this little representation. It's not yellow in real life, but we're trying to make it visual. It pairs up with a red. Oh, it pairs up with a C. This is what a DNA looks like. And then a DNA molecule looks like. And then this gray thing is actually what we nicknamed the DNA backbone. It's another molecule that kind of holds everything into place. And we'll talk about what that is too. It's a very complicated molecule, DNA. Well, it has to be. It actually, again, if you remove the DNA from a bug, if you remove the DNA from a strawberry, if you remove the DNA from a tree, from any living thing, they're all going to have A, G, C, and T. There's no DNA out there that doesn't, there's no living object on Earth that doesn't have that. That's part of why we believe that all life came from a starting bacteria or something, because the fact that they all have identical DNA. Put your pencils down. Look up. No headphones, no phones. So DNA. Oh, I got one more video. This only came out recently. We think on the molecular level, Kiana, this might be what it actually looks like. DNA molecules, this isn't in your notes just yet, but hang on. DNA molecules are very long. How long in humans? Each one is about 6 feet long, about as long as me. I'm 6 feet tall, 5'11", and therefore must be organized to keep them tidy and protect them. So when a cell is ready to divide, all the spirally DNA gets organized into what we call chromatin, which is big, tight spirals of DNA, and then those spirals are spiraled even tighter into these bow tie-shaped little molecules called chromosome. Do me a favor, please. Can you circle? Oh, you don't have this in your notes yet. This is from the diagram. I'm going to circle that. I'm going to circle that. Those are words that we need to know. I think now, here we go. Chromosomes. Now you can pick up your pencils. Every type of organism on Earth, whether it's a plant, a bug, an animal, or a human, has a set number of chromosomes. Humans have 23 pairs for a total of 46. There's a website, you may have heard ads occasionally, called 23andMe, where you can have your DNA checked for possible hereditary diseases and things. Where does the number 23 come from? 23 chromosomes from parent 1, your mom, 23 chromosomes from parent 2, your dad. So one part of each pair is from the mother. One part of each pair is from the father. The chromosomes contain genes, not G-E-N-S, not the pair of pants. Genes, G-E-N-E-S. And these genes determine, well, your hair color, your eye color, everything. Everything. They determine whether you have hitchhiker thumb like I do, or straight thumb. They determine whether you have hair on your knuckles or not. They determine everything. You can sort of think like chromosomes as a big book, and genes are the words in the book. Also, one of those pairs determines your gender. One of those pairs determines, let me pause for a second. So, if you're female, you have 2 X chromosomes, that's what makes you female. If you're male, you have 1 X and 1 Y chromosome. Just that alone explains an awful lot. I'll give you an example. It turns out that the gene for color is on the, oh, my pencil just stopped working. Hang on here, let me pause again. It turns out that the gene for being able to see color is on the X chromosome. How many X chromosomes do females have? 2, which means if one of the color genes is defective, they've still got a backup. How many X chromosomes do males have? Just 1. It's why so many more males are colorblind than females. Girls, you all have a backup color gene. For a female to be colorblind, both sets of genes had to be defective. It may also explain why females have better color and fashion sense than males, generally. Just that right there. Oh, you mean there's a scientific explanation? Yeah. So, why are men so much more likely to be colorblind? The X chromosome is much, much bigger than the Y chromosome, so it has way more genes or words on it. Yes, girls, you're more complicated than guys, as if you didn't know that already. The gene that allows us to see color is on, by the way, the reason we call it the X chromosome, what does it look like? An X? This sort of looks like it's smaller, it sort of looks like a letter Y. It is kind of, oh, we got an X, got a Y, okay? If the gene that allows us to see color, since it's on the X chromosome, if it's damaged, then we can't see color properly. Females have 2 X chromosomes. So if one is damaged, the other one can do the job. Guys only have 1 X chromosome. So if it's damaged, they don't have a backup. Anybody here colorblind? Probably. No? So you don't remember we had a vice principal here named Mr. Liversidge. He's at Thomas Haney now. And he was completely colorblind. In fact, he would say, for example, when I go shopping, I just go to the sales girl and I ask her to pick stuff that matches. And he says, I literally put it in the closet side by side so I know that those match. But everything is gray, shades of different gray to him. Okay? Oh, I got a video. What are chromosomes? Put your pencil down. So, continuing on. What does a gene do? It contains information to make a protein. Protein is EI, by the way. Proteins are what do all the jobs in your cells. Cells are different from each other, even though they have the same DNA, because different genes are used to make proteins in different cells. And then I added here, that's the answer to question number 10 from the DNA coloring sheet. I haven't given you the coloring sheet yet, but when you do that, you'll remember the answer. I wrote down here, do the reading check on page 130. We're just going to do it orally. Let me hit pause. Continuing on. About 5 more minutes, we should be done. It says read, you know what, don't need to worry about that. We did it together. But you certainly can read this because I haven't covered every single detail. Making a protein. What makes you you? The DNA has to be copied. The DNA must be copied. And it makes a molecule called mRNA, or messenger RNA. You can kind of think about it like photocopying a recipe or instructions from a cookbook. mRNA is very, very similar to DNA, except instead of that spiral double-stranded ladder picture that I showed you, Kiana, mRNA is single-stranded. And it has only, I think you can cross out the word has. Oops. And it only contains the information for one gene. And then I wrote here to think about, why does it only need a single strand? If DNA is made up of 2 strands, why can only one strand tell you how everything fits together? Well, because if the one strand has an A, what must go with it on the other side? A T. And if the one strand has a G, what must have matched it on the other side? And so your cells are pretty efficient. They realize they only need to send one side of the DNA out through the nucleus and into the cytoplasm to build the protein. The machinery in your cells can figure out what else must have been there because of those base pairs. The mRNA is used by the ribosomes to make a protein. You can think of it as using the photocopied recipe to bake a cake. Do I have the next part in bold font and big letters? Here's our summary. Oh, study the diagram and the steps beside it on page 131. Make sure you understand the logic of the steps, why they have to be in that order. Note that this is only for proteins that are released. Proteins needed by the cell are still generally modified in the Golgi body, but are then transported to and where they're from needed in the cell. I'll come back to that in a second. No, we're not doing the protein cards. Oh, apparently I forgot to include it. Where's my remember, Mr. Dueck? Oh, there it is. Sorry. Remember that a gene is a segment of DNA that contains the information for a specific protein. What are we working on here? Well, first of all, I have a coloring assignment. Let me pause the video for a second.